Very good job here. Well, we'll call to order our committee meeting of the Public Works and Sustainability Committee. Today is June 12th, and the time is just past 7 o'clock. We have the full committee present, as well as Law Director Vargo and our esteemed physical engineer, right? Is that the title, physical engineer, city engineer?
City engineer.
Professional engineer, I'm sorry. I'll get it right. The more we ask questions, the more we're able to get it right. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, council staff. We have two items on the agenda. One are the minutes from the May 22nd meeting. So without any objection, we'll go ahead and move that those are approved. Is there any objection? Hearing none, those are approved. Second and final order of business, Resolution 2023-32. This is let me open it up here, authorizing the traffic signal project. So without too much to do on that, I'll go ahead and just turn it over to you, Engineer Papke. You can give us an overview of what we're doing with this resolution, and then if my colleagues have questions, and I have a few questions as well.
Sure. Thank you. So approximately every 2 years, NOACA advertises for the CMAQ program, which is the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Program, and they solicit for projects. The city in the past, we've done phases 1 through 5 with this program, and so we had entered in for our phase 6 traffic signals, and really these are the remaining signals that are CMAQ eligible. So we, in the previous years, we did all of our traffic studies that are required for this program and to apply for that. So we did the traffic study, the traffic counts, and put together some preliminary plans in order to prepare us for submission of this request through NOACA. So based on NOACA's eligibility program, we were able to identify 5 intersections that are eligible, which are Warren at City Center, Warren at Athens, and then McKinley at South Marginal, McKinley at North Marginal, and McKinley at Riverside. And these are the traffic signals that are on span wires. They don't have the mast arms. They don't have the updated controllers. So this is looking at it, as a safety improvement for these intersections. And so we had submitted the grant in, I believe it was in May, and we have to have our council resolution to them at the end of this month, which is why we've requested approval at your June 20th meeting. I did prepare a handout here if you want to see like what we have remaining signal-wise.
Yeah. The clerk will grab those, or Councilman Baker. Thank you.
So what I had Josh put together is the traffic signal intersections that we have remaining that haven't been upgraded yet. You can see the ones along the lake have not been done, and those are not NOACA eligible, as well as all these other areas that are identified in the plan. And you can see the phase 6 traffic signal improvements at the intersections that I just spoke about. So, they have, 9 traffic warrant meeting criteria, and so these 5 signals fall within that category that are eligible, which is why we went ahead for the funding. For the funds, we estimate that the cost for this project is 1.3 little bit over 1.3 million. We've requested 848,000, and with the city's contribution being a little bit over 500,000. They have a formula, just like most grants, and so 20% usually the minimum that the city has to contribute. But if we up that a little bit more, we score higher and are more likely to get funding. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Engineer. Yeah, thank you for that. Got a couple in Ward 1 there. Looks like quite a few, the majority of these in Ward 1. So the grant itself, is that a competitive grant? Are there other cities that apply for that, or is it pretty much a sure thing once we apply for it, or what's the likelihood, I guess?
So it's in NOACA's region that it's open, so we are competing against other cities for their projects as well.
Very good. And what happens if we, you know, it's the lion's share of the cost. What happens if we don't? Do we proceed with one signal, two signals, or do we still move forward with next year budgeting that amount? Or is this amount already budgeted and we're looking to offset some of the budgeted amount for these signals?
So we do have some budget set aside for next year that obviously when the budget comes up that we'll be looking at. You know, we have the plans already prepared for the two signals that you'll see on Detroit that need to be done yet that are not warranted traffic signals that the city has to pay 100%. We've moved that off the budget a couple years now, and I'd like to move those forward before those plans go cold, and try to get those done next year. If you look really for this NOACA program, we're looking at fiscal state years of 28 and 29. So we have a couple years to get those other signals done, especially those ones on Detroit,
Okay.
that are remaining.
Great. Thank you for putting this work in and always being on top of things. And this is fantastic. Hope that this all pans out, and certainly something we're all in favor of, or I'm in favor of, I should say. Colleagues? Mr. Bulk.
First of all, I have a bad voice. Sorry about that. Secondly, thanks for the work. The amount in the ordinance is not 20%. It's more like 40%. So 269,000, a little shy of 270,000 would be 20%, and you've proposed here 500,500, which is a lot more. So why don't we just lower that? And if they don't award us, then we can wait for another year and use the money for other needs. I mean, I don't know that I've ever heard a resident worry about the quality of the traffic light. I do know they do appreciate the timing, although even for our new ones, we don't always time them perfectly. So my question is, if you save the difference between what I'm talking about, we got plenty of other needs like paving a parking lot or upgrading concrete on sidewalks, et cetera.
Well, you know, a lot of it goes off of my experience in grant writing and that, and, you know, with, you know, a savings of, you know, roughly 270,000, to get that score bumped up usually helps you, you know, win the project over. If they could see that, they see that the city's willing to spend more than that 20%, you're more likely to get funded.
No, I heard what you say that,
Yeah.
but this is a lot more. This isn't a little bit, this is double.
Understood.
I mean, I'm not sure I support that. I don't want to double what because I don't know that I've ever heard a resident, I always get a little frustrated at the cost of these intersection equipment. I used to be 150,000 per intersection. Now the price is going up even further. But you know, how can you characterize what you've got a list of other needs, don't you?
We do, but, you know, we look at it, you know, based on scoring, you know, just like OPWC.
No, not for this project, other projects beyond this.
Yeah, you know, there's always needs with infrastructure throughout the whole entire city. It's just trying to balance that out so that, you know, we can get funding rather than the project sitting stale.
Yeah, one of the things that's difficult is that we always have these conversations in isolation where you guys, and this is not directed at you alone, it's part of the process, but you've got a list and you bring to us one or more elements from that, but we don't see the context, and I'm asking about the context. I think it would be healthier if we did understand the context, so it's not, oh, can we do this piece of the puzzle, and then we'll talk in 3 months, can we do that piece of the puzzle? But if you didn't have this approved, what would you do with that 500,000?
Well, I mean, it goes in the SCMR funds. That's the specific fund. So it would go towards pavement markings, guardrail, things of that nature that would move forward.
Okay, I'm hearing some editorial comments here, but a 20% match is not what's presented in this right now. It's 40%. It's close to 40. Go ahead, gentlemen.
Thank you. Apologies for our crosstalk. No disrespect. Mr. Baker.
Yeah, and thank you, Engineer Papke, for being here. And I guess I also want to understand. I mean, I'm looking at these, you know, and I 3 of the 5 intersections I cross most days with a 5-year-old, or or a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. So I'm not as much interested. I understand that congestion mitigation and the point of these funds is, you know, traffic counts warranted so the state can take on more of the cost of the signals. From a pedestrian standpoint, what are we able to do things like leading walk signals for pedestrians so that they get to walk before the light changes? Are those things that we can implement here within this program or not? Because that's where, you know, when you're crossing South Marginal and McKinley and you go the same time the cars do off South Marginal, most of the times you're staring a driver going 30 miles per hour through the walk bar as you're walking. And if you had 3 or 4 seconds to get out there before the light turned for the cars, it would provide much more comfort for the pedestrian. So are those types of things that we can do with these signals or not?
Yes, and we would study that further once we, you know, are awarded these funds as a part of the traffic engineering and plan development. I think the leading pedestrian intervals for those 2 intersections are probably an area that we could do that because there's also theories out there that leading pedestrian intervals are unsafe.
Theories, are those based in data, or what's the
Yeah,
consensus among things?
yeah, based on safety, that sometimes there's that car that's making that left turn after, you know, the yellow and red, that if the pedestrian starts crossing and that car's still out there, there's been incidences where, you know, people have gotten struck. So, you know, there's pros and cons to each one of those, but with this, in those 2 areas,
Can't
with
make
it
a
being a
left.
one-way, you don't have to worry about that left turn. So these are probably excellent. Those 2 intersections, with it being one-way, is probably would be something we'd study, and likely we could do such a improvement there.
Now, is that something that NOACA would have to approve, or is that all internal to the city?
It would have to be approved by ODOT.
Okay.
So NOACA gives us the funding, and then we have to go through the project plan development with ODOT and have to meet their criteria for that.
And so to Councilman Bullock's point, this is just money for the mast arms, the lights, the traffic controller, you know, the push buttons. This is no curbs, this is no,
The ADA curb ramps would have to meet current ODOT standards, so it would include the compliant curb ramps
okay. And
with
so
the detector plates.
each signal is roughly 200,000. That's how much signals cost now?
Roughly, yes.
And so these other areas, Councilman Rader noted that they're all kind of up in the corner, and I happen to live in that corner, so I'm very familiar with those intersections. And interesting enough, they're literally an elementary school is in the middle of all of those. And understanding that, you know, old traffic signals don't necessarily mean less safe traffic signals, it just means old traffic signals. But anything we could do to update those would provide.
We are working on Safe Routes to School program that could entail those signals as well in the future. As we get through that and some of our other studies that we are doing, that could make those areas eligible as well, that we would, you know, seek grant funds for those as well through other programs.
Okay. So I guess how can council follow up on the leading pedestrian signalization? Or is that just something that you're committing to look into if this is funded?
We will definitely be looking into this. I mean, we're looking into it like right now with the Clifton signal timing optimization program. So, you know, our consultant that we've been working with is Iteris, who did Detroit. So we work with them, the planning department as well in Public Works, and we look at all aspects of those.
And thank you. And I know, you know, this is where Councilman Bullock and I may disagree a little bit. You know, this is a gateway to our city for a lot of people, and you know, these traffic signals just visually, you know, kind of the wire hanging with the traffic signal is just it's kind of a background that you don't notice, but it makes you think that the area is a little bit more less cared for than if you look at the new, for example, the new mast arm that's on Riverside and Hilliard is the new one. It's more sleek. It, you know, has the coated, you know, black coated steel as opposed to the crashed into rusted, you know, mast arms that are currently there. So I support this. It is interesting that, you know, this is how transportation funding works. You said fiscal year 28, 29?
That's correct.
Yeah, so I mean, how does that affect, I mean, did you bake into your numbers what traffic signals are going to cost in 28, 29 based on like the inflation charts?
Yes, we have to use ODOT's inflation calculations, so that's baked into the cost.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's all I would ask is that, you know, if we are awarded, that we think about leading pedestrian, you know, there's already crossing guards there, but it's a pretty scary intersection, both the marginals.
Will do.
Thank you. Along those lines, can you reiterate again, what are some of the like major differences between one of these hanging lights and a mast arm that would relate to safety of the pedestrian? Are there extra sensors, signals? I guess what are we getting for the money? In your estimation as an engineer, I totally understand why we'd want to make these upgrades for just sort of, I would imagine these things have a useful life as well. And there's reasons why you upgrade, especially when you can get money to do it. But what are the specific sort of pedestrian friendly upgrades we're getting with this new equipment?
Well, I think, you know, it helps with congestion and mitigation with like the radar detection for traffic movements. You're also getting the safety of the, you know, we're planning on putting ADA accessible pedestrian controllers in. So that helps with, you know, folks that are disabled. Just visually, when you're approaching the signals, they now have like the brighter black back plates to the lights that have shown that, you know, rather than just a span wire signal, that when you have that back plate, that's a contrast to the signal, that you're improving safety with that just visually driving down these corridors. So, and then just, looking at the intersection, we'll be looking to see, make sure that it's striped appropriately and that, it meets, all the safety factors that we can possibly put in there to help not only pedestrians, bicyclists, and, motor vehicle traffic.
The one that I'm most familiar with is, of course, one by me on Mark's Plaza light, which I had stopped at a couple times today in my comings and goings in my neighborhood. And it is less prominent, especially as you come up to Warren and Detroit there. I know for a fact people skip that light all the time just because they look at the light ahead and they don't see this hanging light in between. I think having a more prominent light, I'm glad you said that it's brighter, it does gets attention more, it's more visible. With me, it's just purely anecdotal, but it's nice to hear there may be some truth to that is leading to a safer sort of intersection there. And that's a very busy intersection. A lot of people from the Westerly and everything going to Marks and back and forth to the post office. I mean, it's a smaller intersection, but it's incredibly important to pedestrians, and it can be very unsafe because there's a lot of traffic moving through there. So I really appreciate including that in the mix here. Well, good. I don't have any further questions. Mr. Bullock, did you have any rebuttals or anything else you wanted to? Okay. Mr. Baker, anything else?
Thank you, Chair. And, understanding the rest of these, so since the rest of the traffic warrants that you have here that are the old ones, I guess I would describe them as, they don't meet NOACA warrants or CMAQ warrants, is it just that the city will get to them as funding's available, whether it's safe routes to school, some of these other lights are in school areas, or just decide to pay for them themselves?
I think as we're wrapping up, our transportation studies and as well as the safe routes to school, we'll be identifying where those can fit into different funding mechanisms and go after those. And then really those remaining ones, we'll have to budget through our process and figure out what we can afford.
And explain to me the radar technology, what that does and how that's safer.
So those are usually, we have photo cells on some of ours, and now the new technology is using the radar detection. So a lot of times, sometimes in our wintry conditions, those with the photo detected ones, if you have snow or blowing wind, sometimes those don't trigger that left turn that somebody's sitting there at the signal. With the radar now, these are just newer technologies that keep advancing. So radar detection's like the next up and coming thing for actuating signals.
Okay, that makes more sense, because I know the old actuators used to just be in the pavement,
In the pavement,
right?
yeah, they were loop detectors.
Okay, and then they went to photo, and then now it's radar.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any more questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Well, without further discussion, I'll go ahead and move that we refer Resolution 2332 back to the full council meeting with the recommendation to adopt.
A second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? That motion passes, and that concludes our meeting. Thank you, gentlemen, and we'll see you all on Monday.
Tuesday.
Tuesday. We'll see you. Don't show up Monday.
Thank you.